My final project for writing an analysis, I intend to investigate several examples of discrimination and unequal opportunities faced by transgender people across the world. Transgender people face unique problems regarding homelessness and housing. This graphic displays data that shows the struggles that trans people face when it comes to housing, homelessness, and other financial related issues. In Eastern PA, 29% of trans people experience homelessness and 21% have faced housing discrimination due to their gender identity. Transgender people should not be barred from purchasing a house simply because they are transgender, and this shows that policy change is needed to ensure that this kind of discrimination cannot continue to happen. This graphic shows stats regarding the struggles trans people face when seeking shelter. 70% of those who responded to the survey the graphic is based on reported facing rejection or mistreatment because of their gender identity. 44% of respondents reported feeling unsafe and or threatened during their stay at shelters. This data points to a necessary reform of these facilities to provide a more welcoming and accepting experience for trans people facing poverty and homelessness. Trans people still face rejection of their gender identity and are forced or have had someone try to get them to identify with their biological sex. In the health subsection of the 2015 U.S. Transgender Survey, Pennsylvania State Report, 12% of respondents claimed to have experienced a psychologist, religious advisor, and or counselor attempt to get them to stop being transgender. This rejection of a transgender person's identity has negative effects on them mentally and can even cause them to be less likely to seek professional help in the future, whether for psychological help such as therapy or even regular healthcare services. Being transgender is not considered to be a mental disorder, and when professionals treat it as something that can cause a person can choose to be, it can cause the patient to feel rejected. In an article written on the subject of transgender people and the criminal justice system, the author describes a situation they witnessed during an internship at the Philadelphia Mail's Office of LGBTQ+ Affairs. He saw a transgender person who was brought into police custody be sent to a prison for men despite the person's self-identifying as a woman. This is a common issue faced by transgender people within the prison system, and it is one that can put them at high risk of being a victim of physical violence and or sexual assault. It shows that the prison system must be improved to accommodate its transgender inmates and ensure their safety and well-being. Transphobic statements, even those meant to be jokes, have negative effects towards transgender people. This is Dr. Rachel Levine. She's the former Secretary of Health in the state of Pennsylvania, who was the victim of a series of inappropriate online comments and insensitive jokes due to her being transgender. The comments came after her appearance on several COVID-19 press conferences that were held by the Pennsylvania state government in 2020. Dr. Levine addressed these comments at one of these press conferences in an emotional statement, saying that she had no room in her heart for hatred, nor any time for intolerance. She also states that such comments were not only hurtful towards her, but to all transgender people across the state of Pennsylvania. In response to a survey meant to investigate the rates at which trans youth experience bullying, 86.5% of the 274 respondents aged 16 to 25 reported being the victim of some sort of bullying. Many of the insults were related to being trans, as well as some for homophobic comments and comments related to the person's physical appearance. These sorts of comments were found to have noticeably negative effects on the individual's well-being, with conditions such as anxiety and depression resulting. Transgender people are at a high risk of contracting HIV and AIDS. This graphic displays data that shows the rates at which trans people in the UK receive healthcare treatment for HIV/AIDS. 123 trans individuals, or about 0.14% of those who sought care, were treated for HIV, with an overwhelming majority identifying as female. In 2018, 2% of all new HIV cases in the US were transgender. An article published in the UK states that HIV prevention and treatment needs of trans people have been heavily neglected in recent years. Another 2013 study, using data from 39 countries, or 39 other studies in 15 different countries showed that trans women are 49% more likely to be living with AIDS than any other adults. The same study also found that the mortality rate from AIDS/HIV was 30 times more than that of age-matched population controls. Trans people are at a high risk of facing violence due to their gender identity. This graphic shows data related to the rates of which physical violence against trans people in eastern Pennsylvania. The murder rate of trans people has been on a steady increase since 2016, with trans people being 3.7 times more likely to be victims of physical violence. Trans people face unique risk factors due to them being transgender, such as their new name not matching their dead name on legal IDs, as well as poverty, homelessness, and survival sex work. Black transgender people are at especially high risk for facing discrimination and violence outside and within their communities. This graphic shows data related to violence inflicted upon transgender people of color. Out of 26 murders of transgender people in 2020, 69% of them were trans women of color, with 46% specifically being Black trans women. 3/4 of trans murder victims between 2015 and 2019 were trans women of color, with 2/3 of them being Black trans women of color. Trans people of color have a unique set of struggles due to having to face transphobia, racism, and sexism. This article tackles the experiences of Black trans women in community establishments such as schools, the prison system, and churches. Many respondents claimed that they have experienced some sort of violence, discrimination, and/or harassment within one of these establishments. They claim that support systems, especially other trans individuals, are crucial when it comes to helping navigate these establishments, as well as for development as a trans person of color. There is a need for a change of policy in order to ensure the safety of trans people of color. Trans people face unique challenges in trying to receive healthcare due to their gender identity. This graphic highlights several issues transgender people face when it comes to receiving adequate healthcare in Eastern PA. 19% of trans people have been denied healthcare service due to being transgender, while 50% have reported having to educate their healthcare provider on administering trans care. 30% were also reported as having negative healthcare experiences related to their gender. These issues show that change within the world of healthcare is needed in order to ensure trans people can receive the care they need free of judgment and discrimination. Transgender healthcare has also been made harder to receive at a federal level. Back in 2019, the Trump administration proposed policies that would strip transgender citizens of their healthcare protections. Many were outraged by this decision, including Pennsylvania State Governor Tom Wolf, who released a statement on the matter saying that following through with such a proposal would put an already at-risk group of individuals in even graver danger. Unfortunately, the Trump administration was successful in overturning Obama-era blocks on discrimination in healthcare due to gender/gender identity. Trans people are at a high risk of being diagnosed with mental illnesses such as depression, as well as having suicidal thoughts. This graphic explores the mental health issues and conditions that are commonly seen among transgender men. It includes relevant information regarding the rates at which trans men have attempted suicide, as well as percentages showing how prevalent mental health issues such as depression and anxiety are among trans men. This information is important as it shines a light on a population that often goes overlooked when it comes to the conversation about mental health. This graphic shows percentages of transgender teens who had not been treated for mental illnesses but had scores that put them in the range for being diagnosed with them. It also compares these percentages with those of trans adolescents taking puberty blockers as well as cisgender adolescents. This graphic shows that transgender adolescents were more likely to have scores that put them in the range for being diagnosed with emotional problems compared to cisgender adolescents. Access to safe and appropriate bathrooms is a common issue faced by transgender people. This graphic provides insights to the experiences of transgender people in public bathrooms. It displays the population of those who have experienced some sort of physical assault while attempting to use the bathroom, as well as those who faced some form of restriction or verbal harassment while trying to use the bathroom of their identifying gender. This specific graphic includes no data on the use or acceptance of gender neutral bathrooms, which has become a sort of middle ground in this debate. This graphic shows results from a survey distributed in the US that asked questions regarding transgender people and public bathrooms. It asked respondents if transgender people should be able to use the bathroom of the gender they identify with, or if they should be required to use the bathroom of their born gender. The table includes the results based on respondents' age, race, and age group. Uh, One of the ways in which the lives of transgender people can be improved is through people recognizing their struggles and acting as allies. This graphic includes several ways in which people can act as allies to transgender people. The information and tips are easy to follow and offer simple yet effective steps people can take to make themselves better allies, as well as explaining what it means to be an ally in the first place. Much of the steps focus on listening and doing adequate research on the subject so that one can join the movement as a properly informed participant. This graphic includes a list of things to avoid saying to a transgender person because they can come off as inconsiderate and offensive. A lot of the phrases listed have to do with comments regarding a person's physical appearance and how what is often meant to be a compliment can come off as incredibly inconsiderate to the person being addressed. This information is relevant as many people may not even be aware that what they are saying or doing is coming off as rude. In closing, despite enormous steps forward in the acceptance of transgender people in society, there is still a significant amount to be done to ensure their place in the world is not looked down upon. There's a plethora of data to back up the needs of transgender people in the United States. However, any action to do anything about it has moved slowly. As a result of this, many individuals across the country are suffering, feeling like they have nowhere to go, unable to find shelter or a home, unable to receive proper medical care or therapeutic assistance. However, by acting as allies to those who suffer, we can ensure that no one has to face discrimination just because of their gender identity.